Hello and welcome to the show. As you can see, it's just me again tonight. Greg is unfortunately not going to be with us for another week. But don't worry, everything's okay with Greg. He's just, the real world. It rears its ugly head. So he's got some work stuff he needs to take care of. Hopefully we'll have him back soon. How's everyone doing tonight? We have a bit of a special show for you guys tonight in that some of our supporters are actually going to be a part of tonight's show. We do this on occasion. I think this is actually our second one. And if you'd like to come on, chat about cars, and have a whole host of other perks, including invites to some of our events and things of that nature, which we are working on for the spring. Lesson learned last fall. We're going to do things a little simpler this time. But in any rate, we do have a show. I have at least 3 of our supporters coming on the show today, and we're going to talk. As you can tell by the title and thumbnail, we are going to be discussing what's the best word for it? Build ideas that kind of deviate from the norm, i.e. they're a little unhinged. Mostly, and the reason I decided to have some of y'all on is my brain kind of goes to the what would I do with an unlimited budget, and that is, well, it would be building dream cars. Coyote swapping an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, finding a home for... in more ways than one, Steve. Finding a home and putting a Viper V10 in something it wasn't originally designed for. Or, I guess the most quote-unquote unhinged my build ideas get is if I won the lottery, or somehow managed to have hundreds of thousands of dollars burning a hole in my proverbial wallet, would be to... I'd take a early 70s Datsun 510 coupe part is important, and basically use none of it apart from the body, and even then we'd be modifying it. Basically it'd be a wide body. The chassis, will probably do something like send a 510 over to the Roadster shop, because assume they probably haven't built a chassis for it yet. Have them build a completely custom chassis. And, that way you could use whatever suspension components you wanted, whatever hubs, wheels, so-and-so. So if, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, I wanted to use Mustang brakes, even though they'd be the Mustang brakes in a... I'm getting there, Steve. Hold on. Just say, for hypothetical reasons, I wanted to use the Brembos from my Mustang on this particular build. You could just have them install Mustang hubs, and now, boom, there you have it. And then as far as like engine, now Steve says do an LS swap. Yawn, boring. I'm sure Doug, the so-called quote-unquote leader of the chat, so to speak, would be inclined to agree with this, but no LS. But I think the engine, I have spoken about this before, and I love the idea of taking a small displacement engine and making it make a lot of power NA. So like a K-Series, for example, would be a great example of that. You can have a K-Series built NA making 350, 360 horsepower. And then, this is probably where it gets unhinged. Take a V-Cube lock, i.e. one of the worst sounding V6s in a lot of people's minds. And that's, use only the castings for it. So, block, the heads, etc. And get as close as I can. Basically, we're going to punch it out to 4 liters, which can be done because I know people are there's stroker kits for these things that go to 4.1 liters if memory serves. And give it the same bore and stroke and firing order, which would mean custom crank, custom camshafts, stuff like that. Give it the same bore, stroke, and firing order as the flat 4-liter flat 6 out of the most recent generation Porsche 911 GT3 RS, because those things at full chat are, in my opinion, the best sounding V6s out there. Not 6-cylinders in general, V6s. There's only a few that sound incredible, and that Porsche engine is one of them. The 2.9 liter turbocharged 6 that comes in the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio is another one, but there's not many. But that Porsche engine sounds incredible, and noise from the car is displacement, RPM, and the firing order makes a huge difference. As you will find, now if you just go and you Google exhaust clips for, say, an E46 M3, which has a 3.2 liter straight 6, and then let's just say hypothetically a 2J, they don't even come close to sounding the same. And it's because the firing order is different. Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. Sean goes, flathead with a modern casting aluminum block, ITBs, and drop it in a... Listen, man, I'm going to give you your segment to tell the people your ideas and such for this. So, horse and carts, my friend. Horse and carts, my friend. At any rate, also, in some bigger news, you'll notice over here we have a new merch graphic. That's because we now have these on sale in the shop. If we talked about this with Elliot last week, it's one of the most. It became an instant classic from Daytona about the Corvette driver giving a BMW driver the bird, and well, not exactly shocking given the nature. If you want that link, it'll periodically pop up in chat, or if you want that link right now, you can just hit !merch, and it should send you the link there. What else did I want to... let's see here. Just Sean goes, I'm sorry, I just made that swap up on the fly. That's why you're going to be a guest on the show, because between you and a couple other guys, mostly you, the whole idea of Unhinged build is it's a Sean Ford special, if we're being honest. The fact that you're fuel injecting a flathead to begin with, as opposed to just going with 8 Webers or whatever, makes that idea. Sorry. Sean goes, I need that hoodie. Got it. I don't want to hear myself. Patrick, welcome. He goes, the most unhinged build I would either be a super clean 1980s Bronco, put a snowplow on it to annoy collectors, or a slant 6 Volvo 240 because it would be funny. Slant 6 in a Volvo 240. That's definitely one I've never heard. I see some Slant 6 stuff getting a lot of love lately. I forget. Oh, what the hell is the YouTube channel? I saw one of those guys built one, and then they applied boost to it. Pretty interesting, to be honest. Copy link. There we go. And then oh gosh. Yeah, Doug, what we are talking about tonight is your most unhinged build ideas. Budget is not a factor, but this can't be like what would be the best way to describe it? This isn't something like a dream build, right? You know, like I have a dream build for my Mustang if budget wasn't an issue, right? There's a Born Stroke, the 5.0 to 5.5, put a T56 behind it, GT350, the S550 GT350, brakes all the way around, KWs on, like, you know, dream build where we don't have to worry about a $25,000 motor or a $8,000 transmission, or you know KWs. The V3s can get redonkulously expensive. You know, it's more of a I mean, get inside Sean's head. You know, if a flat head with fuel injection, ITBs in a, I've already forgotten what the Triumph Spitfire, there it is. But let me just see here. All right. And I'm going to so I'm doing the calls on the fly. I don't have a producer. This is the Shifting Lanes way and budget. So our first up is going to be supporter and definitely unhinged in the best way possible. It's going to be our good supporter, Steve, and let's see here. Whoa, why did it do that? Oh, that's not the one I want. Alrighty, and reset. Whoa. Definitely didn't want to. Everybody say hi to Steve because he was right there. Sorry, Steve. What are we doing here? Oh, I want to do this. Like I said, guys, I'm doing this on the fly, so without a producer, as you can see. Guests, Greg. Where is it? Full cam, there we go. All right, and I don't know why Streamlabs is condensing, or Skype. Ah, there we go. We have a Steve. Steve, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome, as he centers himself for us. Steve is joining us from his almighty Honda CRV with his most favoriteest of transmissions, the CVT. While you're getting yourself sorted, Steve, can you hear me, my friend?
Permission to curse?
No F-bombs, please.
I like my Honda. Absolutely hate the CVT.
Fair enough, my friend. Let's see here. So, hold on, let me just see here if I was. I'll get to Doug in a second. So, this is Steve's first appearance on the show. I'm in the wrong spot. There we go. At any rate, Steve. Steve always has some pretty good ideas, and well, when I say pretty good ideas, I mean he has ideas. Some of them are good, like most of us, right? So, Steve.
No offense, I am kind of on the spectrum.
We all are. We all have a touch of it in certain things. We're all here because we love cars, and most of us have a specific car or car brand that we have just become experts in. But seeing as that's the topic of tonight is in fact unhinged car builds, and what if I gave you, well, not me, but if you had an unlimited budget and no adult supervision, what is your unhinged car build?
Ooh, I would probably find a Tim Burton's Batmobile, and I would probably do an LS swap, but I'm going to put 2 huge turbos on it, and I'm going to make sure that the back of that Batmobile actually shoots flames.
So I think actually those, I think those actually came with a, okay, they didn't come with an LS, but they came with a 327-inch actual small block. I knew they came with a Chevy V8. I just wanted to double check. But no, I mean, let's face it, right? Like,
I was.
No.
It came with the 5.7 LT1.
I'm just going off of the 1989 Batmobile Peterson Automotive Museum. Was powered by a 327 cubic inch V8 Chevrolet engine mounted low in the frame in order to maintain low hood line and enhance the car's sleek profile. And I've always thought that those Batmobiles were a direct inspiration to Don Panos when he did the Delta Wing. You can Google that later. But yeah, Anthony agrees with us. You know, spectrum being a common trait here. Doug goes, some love dinosaurs, some of us love cars. Sean goes, tread carefully being inside my head. There are rusty half-finished projects everywhere. Sounds like Anthony's front yard. Let's see here. But now, just to sort of maximize our time here so you can get more. Now, let's remove the unhinginess and your dream car / dream build, whatever, what would it be? Again, money is not an object.
That's a good question. There's a lot of cars that I like. Because, you know, I would find a 1970, remove the 454, and actually just the frame itself, and I'll try to fit it into like a Corvette race car, like what's on your hoodie.
So let me rephrase it. I didn't quite, or let me you would take the 454 out of a Chevelle and put it into a Corvette, or put a Corvette engine into the Chevelle?
I would rip the body off, like I would rip the Chevelle body off, and somehow retrofit it into a Corvette race car, like the Le Mans.
Gotcha. Let's just see if that'll work. Wheel. Because like one of the funny things is cars you wouldn't think have similar wheelbases. I looked this up because this was one of those instances where I was trying to give Greg a bad idea to see if he would just run with it. He didn't, shockingly enough. But the C5 Corvette and the Volvo 240, I looked up coupe, but I think all the 240s have similar, if not the identical, wheelbase. One of the Volvoist puzzle pieces in chat will correct me if I'm wrong. But those two fit. So I always thought it would be hilarious to have Corvette underneath, boxy Volvo on top. No, what was I looking? C6.
I'm gonna say this. Don't forget to like and subscribe Shifting Lanes. Make Shifting Lanes a huge car community.
I appreciate that, my brother. The main channel is so close to the plaque. I think we're 17 or 1,600 subscribers away from our first play button, which is a huge deal for us. But I appreciate that. And Steve is wise. You should listen to Steve. Let me see here. So, the 1970 Chevelle had a wheelbase of 112 inches for the coupe. And the convertible was 116 inches, or the coupe and convertible was 112 inches. Just as a point of reference, we have just because I used it as the quick reference, the C6 Corvette in Z06 trim has 105.7 inches. So we're dealing with a difference of mathing about 6 inches. Wonder what the C7 is. Oh, it's the same. Okay, it's not impossible. You'd have to figure out width, but that would actually be the idea of taking.
Nothing's impossible.
I mean, no. All it takes is time and money. But I always like the idea of taking old stuff and putting it on new stuff body wise. Now it is tricky because you'd effectively, because obviously Corvette, right? Or the new Corvettes are, what's the word? They're unibody. So you would have to effectively put a full cage in it to make sure it's, retains some of that structural rigidity and isn't, a floppy mess. But I mean, Chevelle body on a Corvette, I mean, sign me up. I
can't read the comments. I just hope there wasn't a lot of that.
Let's see here. Going through. Patrick McNeely goes, a Cobra Jet in a Skyline would be very funny. I mean, I honestly think putting an American V8 in any JDM car would be hysterical just because of how prevalent JDM engine swaps are and everything else.
Well, the guy from Hoonigan did that with his Skyline.
Yeah,
his grandfather's Corvette engine and got a Eldercross Supercharger.
There's been a few on Hoonigan there. There was, I forget who the guy's name is. It wasn't Hurt, but it was someone else. And then they had someone on there.
Hurt had an LS in his.
Yeah, he had the LS in the RX-7, the FC. Then he put the 13B back in it, and then I think he actually put the V8 in it. But I think also someone did a twin turbo VQ into a GTT Skyline. So I'm sure 99.99% of you here understand the difference, but just in case, the Skyline was multiple different cars over in Japan. We all think of the GTR, right? But you had the GTT, which was the slightly different engine, smaller, rear-wheel drive only. You had a sedan variant. You had the wagon variant, which was the Stagia, even though it had different bodywork. But those GTTs are a cheap way to get in because all the bodywork will fit directly.
I'm gonna get so much for this. I love JDM. I just think Skylines are overrated.
I mean, here's the thing. The R32, 33, 34 generation, I mean, even the 35, right? It was a world beater just in a different way than the first not first three generations because there's a whole mess of them. But at any rate, before we go down that particular and ridiculous rabbit hole, I can understand GTR / Skyline because I think actually there was a Skyline based on a G35, like back in the day. But at any rate, I can understand the fatigue because everyone nerded out about them. Our generation's at that age where we can import them, and they became unicorns, and the R35 has been around for forever, right? I could totally understand that segment or that sentiment. Sorry. So, but let's see here. Paul over on YouTube, he goes Mazda R EV drivetrain in anything before 1980. Electric silence, but randomly makes angry rotary noises. Evidently falls under the unhinged portion of the mild of the. But that does actually bring up a decent point. That I think honestly, like not if you were to bastardize like a classic chassis or anything, but like there's so much repro and stuff out there now. Take like a random, like I know this might sound as blasphemy, but like say you had a Pontiac Le Mans EV, might be like what is it? West Coast EV West or something is doing some crazy cool stuff with EV swaps. Like I'm obviously not going to sit here and say you should do it to a GTO, but the Le Mans or the Tempest or
blasphemy.
Look, they did it in they did an E46 M3, not an M3, sorry, a regular 3 Series that they put in M3 bodywork on. And I think for like, let me put it to you this way, right? Like, not that I'd ever do it, but everybody remembers the Lincoln Continental from the Entourage intro, right?
Yeah.
Those things are not known for their snarling V8 or making a lot of noise or having enough lope to shake the fillings out. But if you, and it doesn't have to be fast, it just has to cruise. Again, I would still prefer a big V8 in it and have it a little bit of a rumble, maybe just more muffled than you would on a normal hot rod. But like stuff like that, I think you're absolutely, as the availability of these, you know, just like we have the junkyard LS now, just like we have all sorts of junkyard engines now, you're going to start to get junkyard EV powertrains. Some of that sort of stuff. But, Steve.
Dodge Viper swap in a Lincoln Continental.
I feel like that's so much of a rowdy engine for that car, and there's, I mean, I gotta remember, it is definitely, I should have a button that just plays a graphic, unhinged. But we have Ethan over on Facebook. If money wasn't an option, or there was an infinite amount of money to throw at a car, there used to be a Volvo 740 wagon with Corvette parts on it. But I would do a 960 wagon with Corvette suspension, but with coilovers, and an LS3 supercharged engine would be a nice touch. But try to put in the V60 Pulsar seats and maybe a P27 V70R interior. Sorry if this was too long. Not at all, my brother. I mean, 99% of our chat right now is reading that and loving it, or thinking of that same vein of what they would do and stuff. But before we let Steve go ahead.
Another brainstorm. Limited money, I would buy, if I can find one of Dale Earnhardt's NASCARs. Swap it out. Put it in an 80s IROC Z Camaro. Make it look street legal. And you'll always have a piece of Dale with you.
I mean, that is extremely on brand for Steve, if anyone knows Steve's legendary status in chat. Like, see, Ethan, like what I said, Anthony already is on board with what you're talking about. At least I think. Chat is slightly behind what we're actually. At any rate, Steve, before we let you go, anything else you'd like to say? Anything you want to share? I just want to say before you do leave, make sure you take your keys with you. Because Steve is actually from his car, and if you know, you know, coming to us live from inside of his car. But
Insert middle finger.
hey, I'm number one. But yeah,
It's the New Jersey State Bird.
it is 100%. Not just for BMW drivers. There we go. Make it look street legal. I'm done. But anyway, before we let you go, give us whatever. Give us a car opinion. Give us some dad advice. What have you? Go.
Honestly, I'm just glad to be here. I've been with this group about maybe 3 to 4 years now, and I finally got to meet you guys last year, and I'm looking forward to meeting more of our members. And like I said, I really hope to see this group get bigger.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. As always, we'll see you in chat.
And
Yes.
also, not Taylor Ham.
And that's enough of Steve. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
Take care, man. So, see, like what I say, we got another one. Sean goes, that man just wrote a smut novel for me. See, there we go. So let me just try to catch up here. Doug goes, I've always wanted to build a hot rod / rat rod, but build it off of a stove bolt 6 Chevy motor. But that sounds too boring. Let me give it some more thought. Amen, my brother. And then Anthony goes, Steve's coming to Carlisle. We got to make that happen. Love it. I love. I forget who I was talking to earlier today about it, but one of the cool things about doing this is, yes, shifting lanes. We make content, but it is a business, right? Like the content comes first, but it is business. So like, there is that monetary element to it. However, like I said, we're really close to the play button over on the main channel on YouTube, which we're not actually on right now, streaming, I mean. Excuse me. But, and that's something I never thought. And you'll know when we'll hit it because it'll show up right here. It'll be right here when it happens. I think we're all going to... between the three of us who run shifting lanes, we're going to pitch in and make sure each one of us has a play button. But Doug, thank you, my dude, for the 100 stars. This graphic right here was supposed to come with audio. If you can hear the audio with it, let me know. If not, it's no big deal because I tried. And that's not me trying to solicit for stars, please. And then Doug says with that is towards kidnapping Steve for Carlisle. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm trying to get at. Is a long-winded way of saying it before I keep continuously getting distracted and things of that nature. Is that the fact that we've been able to build a bit of a community? No audio. Thank you, Anthony and Doug. That's weird. It plays on the sidetracked. Squirrels are running all over the place, and I'm following them. One of the coolest things about this, especially since we started doing this show, is building a community, and that's I've always pictured shifting lanes being something where we give you car content, whether that be reviews, whether it be news, whether it be builds, whether it be things like cool automotive stories and history and all that other sort of stuff. As much as it's about doing all that sort of stuff, building the community and having something in between your typical car channel and like a gaming channel where there's like a community of people, there's a place for everybody to get together and talk about whatever automotively speaking. If you're in the supporter group or you're in the private chat that we have set up, guys are talking about all sorts of random, like that's again part of the inspiration for the topic of today's show is the hell was I talking about? Part of the inspiration of today's show is, some of these conversations that happen in there, and you know, I know it's going to sound oddly self-serving, but like the supporter group, it's I never met these people before doing this, and they're friends. So we sit here, we rib each other, we talk cars, we have random ideas. Nobody. It's like when you're hanging out with your boys and you talk about whatever you can. Almost ripped my headphones out. It's like that. That was the impetus behind the Shifting Lanes Garage channel name. Was not necessarily that it's an actual garage, not that it's necessarily a. Though I do want to eventually down the road have a Shifting Lanes Garage. That's sort of like a cool place where we do a lot of our videos and stuff, but it's also a place where we can have fans, supporters, cool people come and hang out and everything. But like when a bunch of dudes, and I think Doug kind of, I'll get to one train of thought, Chad, is that when a bunch of dudes get into a garage and they're working on a car or they're just kind of hanging out or whatever, they're talking about whatever, they're talking about cars, they're talking about car news, motorsports, all that other sort of stuff. That's kind of what our vision for Shifting Lanes Garage was in that vein, is just talk cool stuff about, and yes, it's a car channel, so cars are the focus or what have you. Sean goes, we have plotted to kidnap that man, Steve, so many times. Yeah, I mean, make it a reality. We'll figure it out. Doug goes, when you work on cars, you can search for internal nipple extractor and be legit. Need something for around a 7/8 inch brake piston if you have any ideas. I think you actually need a part, if I'm reading that correctly, or I'm not. I have no idea. Sean goes, it's an ongoing plot. Yes, next time on Dragon Ball Z. But Steve is not our only guest. We still have 2 to go, at least. Guest. Elliot. We are our second guy up, and is largely, if there was a president or leader or founder of the Unhinged Automotive Build Club, it would be for our next guest. And that is Sean, who, I mean, you see him in chat all the time. He's a great supporter of the channel and stuff like that. Great to talk to. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on that I keep telling him needs to be on a YouTube channel, but a conversation for the other day. But ladies and gentlemen, well, let's face it, just gentlemen, say hello to Sean. And Sean, my friend, I know I didn't give you a warning, but I saw you lurking in the Skype call, so I figured you were ready. You don't have to look like a deer in headlights, my dude. Just relax. Hail Timmy. Yes, that is Sean's car. But Sean, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Can you?
Yes, we
can
got
you hear
you
me?
loud and clear, my friend.
Am I? Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
got you. I can hear you.
I am trying to unmute the.
Sorry, I probably should have given a warning. Audio, yeah,
Oh, hold on. I'm a ninny. Give me a
no
moment
problem.
here. All right. Sorry, switching back over to Skype so I don't have the audios looping.
Fair enough. Welcome.
Well, let's get this started.
What just happened? I literally just. Did you drop? Was that intent?
No, it was intentional.
Because I don't know. On my end, all I saw was you holding your mug, and then you froze, and I hear audio of something falling, clattering, almost straight out of Archer. It would have been great if it just sort of spun for that awkward amount of time, and then back, I just see you like this, like so.
I took a sip, drained it, and yeeted it over into the door for dramatic effect.
I figured you were going for the Thor another. Uh, but
I mean, I guess it's appropriate. I do have this tapestry.
I kind of yeah. I mean, but. Re-
Anyway, let's get.
But real quick, just because it was touched on in Doug kept picking up on the Archer reference. Do you want ants? Because this is how we get ants. Thank you, my friend. That was actually.
I'm not gonna leave it there. I'm gonna pick it up after this and clean it.
But because it was referenced and because it is a fairly frequent topic of conversation outside of here, Doug says, "Hail Timmy." Now, to those who are new or don't know Sean, give us a brief history on who Timmy or what Timmy is, and also how did it get its name?
So, Timmy is a 1992 Volvo 940 Turbo that I acquired for $500 from a guy that rebuilt refrigerators, which is already kind of a weird job to have in this day and age with disposable products, but carry on. And I bought that car, and pretty much every gasket that could leak did leak, except for the crank seal gaskets, surprisingly. But other than that, I drove it home barely. It struggled to do highway speeds, and I went about just trying to get the car sorted out as a daily driver, because I went from a 2003 BMW 745 armored, which I didn't even know you could get the short wheelbase armored, but apparently you could, and went to a 92 Volvo. And after a couple of years of owning that, I ended up getting involved with the Volvo, a bunch of like-minded individuals at I sort of say Cars Against Humanity. That's a whole different video series on YouTube. Cars and Coffee. And that was how I met Anthony and a few other guys. And then we ended up starting RVA Swedes, which is, as far as I know, Virginia's largest Swedish car club at this point. Around that time, I decided I wanted to do something with the car, and I didn't really have an idea on what to do with it. And I worked on my vehicle, my previous vehicles myself before, but never to the extent that I had to with that car, because nobody around where I lived wanted to touch that thing for even basic repairs. So, not having access to the knowledge base that I do now, I just kind of started hodgepodging stuff together, and if it worked, I just went with it. And it just kind of went like that. And as I got more knowledgeable about the vehicle and the ins and outs of it, I realized what I could get away with sketchy looking repair. And I just used that trend until we got to the point now where it's got license plate bodywork, plumbing parts holding the plumbing parts, duct tape, and decking nails holding the transmission shift cable in place, and so on and so forth. And the name Timmy came from the fact that the recirculating valve for the turbo was blown, so when you got off throttle, it sounded like it was saying Timmy from South Park.
Oh, okay. There you go. I like how
literally you go into boost, and it'd start making turbo spooling sounds. You let off the throttle, it goes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So those. Sorry, I was. Those were the last generation of Volvos to come with a red block, if memory serves. Boy, I'm gonna make the chat hate me if I get this wrong.
The 940 was the last of the red block powered cars that were rear wheel. Well, the last of the red blocks and the last generation platform Volvo made that was rear wheel drive. Well, Actually, that's not true because technically the lower trim XC40 Recharge electric Volvos are rear wheel drive if you want to count that, but front engine rear wheel drive with the drive shaft.
Boy, we're in it now, boys. We are way in it now. But no, and I mean it's I mean I think the most recognizable thing about that car, or at least the thing that just so before I knew you, I think you knew Greg as most of the people in chat or in the Volvo scene or what have you. They knew Greg before they knew me, which is fine because like I was Volvo by business, not Volvo by birth. I guess is the terrible way of explaining that. Um, but he's like, "Who's this Sean guy?" And he's like, "Oh, he's the dude at Carlisle with license plates as a front splitter." It's like, "Oh, I remember the car." I didn't have like, and that's how our brains work too, right? It's like you remember people by car, right? Like so many people would go, "Oh, you're Chad." Like, yeah, you have the C30, right? And it was like, had, but yes. And everyone's like, it's funny when I go to when I went to Carlisle a couple years ago. People are like, "Oh, where's the C30? I haven't seen the C30 in a while. Blah blah blah. What's going on with that?" It's like, I sold it. Like, yeah. And they just, oh.
You know, to be fair, there are quite a number of people that don't necessarily know me, but they know my car, and it comes down to just because it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, in its peak form, well, aside from what I'm building to here eventually, but in its peak form before it blew its transmission out here in West Virginia, um, it was sitting on the BBS Ferrari wheels that I removed the plasti dip off of, and then did my best to repaint them gold as they would have been from the factory. But it had the license plate chin splitter, license plate duckbill spoiler, and people in the car scene in Virginia, they they knew that car, and it kind of ended up becoming a character of its own. And within the RVA Swedes car club, I would argue that kind of got a little bit legendary status to a certain extent because that car is the reason that every year we have a car show, and there's different awards that you can win if you want to enter into that. And that Timmy is the reason for the most ratchet award, which it has won 2 out of the 3 times that we've been doing the award ceremony for the show. So he's also a champion for better or for worse. You know, for being unhinged and ratchet. Like, I literally have a trophy that's framed, and it's a golden spray painted ratchet with an 11 millimeter socket on it because they couldn't find a 10 millimeter socket.
Shocking.
And we treat it like the Wimbledon trophy because on the backside of the trophy mount, everyone that wins it, they sign their name and the year in which they won the trophy. And then at the end of at the beginning of the next car show, we turn the trophy back in for someone else to win it.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if I missed it or I had a moment, but what is the, I don't want to say qualifications, but to win the Ratchet Award, what does that mean? Like, what does the Ratchet Award represent?
Just the most it's the most ratchet, like typically modifications or repairs that a vehicle can have. The one time that someone like beat me on it was some guy, for example, he welded bicycle frames to the roof of his Volvo 240 wagon, which honestly, in my opinion, was pretty low effort, considering that was what he won the award for. But, someone had to take it from me at some point, so I'd have an excuse to fight for it back.
Well, there you go. It's, what is it? In sports, you see it, MVP fatigue. Like, a guy doesn't win the MVP because people are just tired of seeing that dude keep winning. But again, whole impetus for the show was again, we all have crazy ideas, but I think your crazy ideas take the cake. So let's go.
I was cooking some up. All
Throw
right.
an unhinged build at me. Go.
All right. So I'm gonna piss off the purists that I don't care. You know that very well. Jaguar E-Type. Shorten the nose of it because frankly I think it looks a little bit too long, and then take two Volvo T5, the 2.3 liter 5 cylinders, and mate them together at the crank. Basically, just make a new block that's a 75-degree V10. Keep it turboed, and just shove that down inside that engine bay, but shorten the Jaguar E-Type's front end out about a foot. Uh, and then tilt the radiator back so it'll clear because you might have some, dimensional issues with the cooling system, but figure that out later. Dual clutch transmission from a BMW M3 to E92, preferably, because those are excellent transmissions. Slightly wide body the car because you're gonna need to put some fat rubber underneath there so that thing will actually get traction because it's not gonna weigh very much. And just for a little extra touch, side exit exhaust, kind of like the old SLR McLaren used to have, blended into the body.
So you're talking even before, while still in the fender, the front fender exhaust, almost.
Like where it's kind of at the bottom, but it's in the fender, like kind of coming out, but blended into the bodywork.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always wondered how they got away with that. Because there's like laws and shit with that, like, so
low volume production. So there's, I imagine they probably take a hit on it somewhere, but I mean, look at Lamborghini. Look how much stuff on their cars is barely legal or probably not even legal at all, and they're still sold in this country. I mean, they're breaking every single noise ordinance that probably exists in every state. So
true. But no, I like you could tell the what's the word? Volvoism runs deep because it's like there are a lot of other V10s, but no, let's completely have a new block. But as crazy as that sounds, a guy, I forget, it's actually been around for a minute, but there's a guy who took two 1JZ straight sixes and did basically what you're saying. They made a V12 out of it. Now, I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, isn't that just a 1GR or whatever?" It isn't.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like a 1GZ basically, but like
I mean,
sort of. The heads are slightly different.
Heads are different. I think the bore and stroke are actually slightly different, if memory serves. Because I know a lot of people who are playing around with those thought you could just put, like 2J. Here's the thing: 1J and 2J pistons will fit in either engine because the displacement is by stroke, not by bore. I think. Actually, now that I say that, I have to check. In bore. Because the 1JZ is physically shorter. Yeah, it's the stroke. Okay. I thought I was having a stroke, but no, it's the stroke. Because a 1J is actually physically shorter than a 2J, but everything else is the same. I mean, that would... See, I've often had the same, like, what to not... what's the word? And originally when you first said, you said, oh, have a meet at the crank. My head didn't think V. It thought, it's like, all right, well, Sean's going full Sean, and to be like, yes, we're going to make a straight 10 out of it. I'm sorry. That's immediately where my head went. Like,
I think that I'd have to like stretch the engine bay of the Jaguar E-Type to fit that because that'd be an absurdly long engine,
yeah.
which I'm not opposed to.
No, but I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, yes, proportionally, E-types can look a little, we'll just say phallic. And I personally believe that they're best with the straight six and not the 4.2 liter V12 that later models came with.
It was a 5 liter. The 4.2 was the inline six.
There you go, Sean, everyone. Um,
I was looking it up earlier because I wanted to know what the wheelbase was for the car, and I wanted to refresh my mind on how big the actual engine bay was because I was like trying to see like would a inline five Volvo engine actually fit in the engine bay if you shortened the nose of it by like a foot.
well, as far as I understand it, the Volvo 5 cylinders aren't huge.
No.
I seem to remember them being. Granted, it was years apart, but I remember the 5 cylinder in my C30 not being noticeably longer. I'm sure it is, but noticeably longer than the 4 cylinder I had in one. Well, I had two. Oddly enough, the only cars I've owned twice are Ford products. At any rate, one of the two Focuses I owned when I was in college. Um, Worst header or exhaust manifold job on the planet, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. Those early 2000s Focuses. But, no, and I mean, as far as your unhinged ideas go, this is, it's the best way, not as well, to be honest, not as batshit crazy as I was expecting. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, or what have you. But like, to your previous comment about the flathead and putting ITBs on a car that was carbureted, I don't even know how. Like, what I would have to. I don't know enough about flatheads to sit here and say it's like, could you just kind of do a basic fuel injection with them, like, or whatever? But like.
I mean, why not? Because with ITBs, the difference between ITBs and carburation or individual cylinder carburation, it's not really all that different. I mean, you've seen people do like the ITB setups before where the injector is actually just outside of the trumpet of the ITB. They do it on the Toyota 4AG motors. I wouldn't say all the time, but there's quite a few people that have done those.
So when you said just down the outside of the trumpet, so like literally just pouring into the trumpet, like you see on the what the hell's the Alfa Romeo DTM car that I'm blanking on, the 125, you know, the one that with the Busso.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of that vehicle too. The Busso is one of my favorite V6s of all time. Just if it wasn't attached to Italian electronics.
Yeah, but I mean, we do live in an era where you can eliminate the Italian electronics. But oh man,
yeah, you can just go buy a modern Alpha, which oddly enough is reasonably reliable in the grand scheme of Chrysler products.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that because, like, as you can imagine, with Greg perpetually I'm beginning to think Greg isn't actually buying a new car. He's just like justifying looking at new cars. But a car I found recently that is in his price range are Quadrifiglios, which I mean, anything Italian that isn't 12 cylinders and mid-end or anything that Italian that isn't 12 cylinders, that stuff is just appreciating like stones. And that, like I said at the beginning of the show, that's one of the best sounding modern V6.
I think the Quadrifolios or the Clover car, because I cannot pronounce that word to save my life. I always stumble over it. The Clover cars from Alpha, those ones that have that biturbo V6, if I'm not mistaken, they actually have more issues than the regular mundane civilian version.
Well, yes.
Which kind of... I'm sure in the aftermarket, if you really wanted to throw the money at it, you could probably fix those issues yourself. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about them to say like would throwing better what you would need to throw at it, right? Like, I don't know enough about Alpha ECUs. I don't know if they're programmable or whatever, or if by throwing a insert aftermarket ECU like a Motec or whatever at it would help with control and stuff. I don't know, but like, well, as far as I understand it, those things they're also a hot V. So like, I don't know how
Yeah.
much that complicates things, but I mean, I'll even mention when I sent Greg the link to like a couple of them that I found. I go, hear me out. You don't have to own it for forever, but own it for a summer, and then start the process all over again. Because, man, like I've said it before, I'm a sucker for something that tries to compete with the M3. I love the ATS-V platform from uh, Cadillac. Love the ISF or IS 500F something. Why car companies have to add ridiculously stupid long names to stuff I will never understand, but like that sort of stuff. Like even like the original Audi RS4, talking about like electronic issues. But I'm a sucker for a car that's got the M3 in its sights. And ironically, I've only ever owned, when it comes to the hot super sedans, I've only owned the M3. Never again. But I get
Well, to quote Jeremy Clarkson from years and years ago, um, and if you remember this quote, correct me if I say it wrong, but every petrol head should drive at least drive or own an Alfa Romeo for a certain amount of time.
yes. I think their exact line was, to be a true petrolhead, you had to have at some point owned an Alfa, which I can get
Yeah.
because I've driven Alphas. I've driven the Quadrifiglio. I've driven the 4C, which is a mind fuck of a car because it's small, but it's not as small as you think it is, and it's even tinier on the inside, and it's exactly as barren as you would think it is on the inside. But as far as owning one, that's a Chad has to hit the lottery type thing because I don't have time to deal with Italians, so to speak.
Well, getting back onto the original topic of hand, because like we just realized we kind of went on this crazy tirade.
That's fine.
Tangent.
That's what the show's all about.
I actually had another. This is probably more wacky of a build than the first one. In fact, this is definitely more wacky of a build and very obscure. Are you familiar with the Ford Centurion?
Enough to know I recognize the name, not enough to know what it is.
Basically, it's like basically a late '80s, early '90s Ford van, but on a F-250 chassis with the bed.
Oh, it's an excursion before the excursion.
Basically.
Okay.
So I always thought it'd be fun to basically take one of those or make one yourself, because it wouldn't be that difficult. But take ditch the gas motor that they typically would have had, which was like the 460, or if you were really poverty spec, the 351. I think a few of them snuck out with, if you really wanted to pay the money for it, you could get a few of them with the IDI 7.3 that had the turbo, but they're good luck finding one of those. But do a if it's not already a diesel one, do a diesel swap. However, mid-engine convert it.
Why mid-engine?
Because I would want to chop the top a little bit, just to kind of reduce the weight that sits up high, and then lower it, and then go run the 24 hours of Lennon's with it.
So you're like
If they
almost sort of kind of thinking an 80s or version of the Flex, just with the engine in the middle.
More like the Ford Ranchero with an eating disorder.
But no,
And the engine in the wrong place.
and no bed.
Well, I mean, there'd be a little bit of a bed left. I mean, I don't know what you'd store in there, but, you know. I guess if the referee ever gets on your case about taking up too much of the track, you can always just hog tie him and throw him in what's left of the bed and drive around the track with him.
But to
If
anyone,
you're gonna get black flagged, give him a good reason for it.
who's wondering, that's the vehicle we're talking about.
Oh no! That's what is that?
Centurion.
Because that actually. Oh, I guess they did different versions. I guess the Centurions had different versions. I was thinking of the one that it's literally the Ford van, like the E250 on the front, but then it's Ford F250 in the rear with the truck bed.
Ah,
That looks like a four-door Bronco.
that's exactly what they're talking about. Like, um,
I was thinking of the Centurion van, but
let's see here. Then that's CJ. E. Oh, there's an E350 version of it. Let's see here.
yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
All right. So you're thinking. Open. So you're thinking more along the lines of that.
Yes. Ugh.
I mean, sure, sure. I mean, that is definitely when I thought of giving or having Sean have an unlimited budget to do whatever unhingedery he wants to do. That's it.
Like just chop the top 6 inches, just bring it down 6 inches. If you got to have that seat kind of reclined a little bit to be able to clear your head, so be it. Or do the Ford GT40 thing and just do bubbles over your head so you can clear the helmet that's probably going to be required to, drive on a racetrack.
Yeah. I mean, let me put it to you this way: ain't nobody gonna pass you.
No. They'd be afraid.
Well,
Mostly of the bed flying off and taking out their car, but
I just meant in a perfect situation. I mean, there's not much. I mean, there's not many racetracks that have the width to allow that and another car in a corner.
I mean, clipping the grass is probably going to happen in that thing.
I mean, I'd hope so. Just like the wheelbase. Like if you managed to drift around every corner, literally nobody would get past you. They'd have to do it on the straights.
If I'm behind someone who's driving that and they just like execute a perfect drift, I am giving them a couple car links. I don't care if it's a race, because as long as that thing is, you have no idea what the hell is going to happen if something goes wrong in that situation.
I mean, not for nothing. If someone were in, like, you have a lot of rear crumple zone too, so you want to get oversteer into the corner because there's a lot of.
Oh well, remember you're gonna have like a 7.3 liter diesel engine sitting back there too. That's part of your crash structure. It'll be fine.
or part of what's coming at you, but yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, it just totally derailed my train of thought. But yeah, that is what you would refer to as Sean's unhingery at its finest. And this is just some of the stuff my man's come up with. I mean, you could write a book. But before we let you go, and since you're here, Anthony, your 2-minute warning starts now. I guess since I asked Steve this, moving from the world of that would be the dumbest and craziest cool thing I've ever seen of the unhinged mind, dream build. So if you could buy a car, build a car, what have you, what would it be?
I would. This is. Sorry for the Facebook dings coming up on audio.
I figured it out. It's actually me in that chat. So,
Um, this is probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but once again, I don't care about that. I am a huge fan of the Jaguar F-Type. I love the way it
Uh-huh.
looks. And for cars of that body shape, I'm also a fan of the Liberty Walk style body kits.
So we're talking riveted on fender flares, that sort of thing.
Liberty Walk hardtop F-Type, a reasonably nasty exhaust, and dual. Well, I think the car already has a pretty well sorted out dual mode suspension, but I like the idea of having a suspension that's got like a dedicated, like genuine track stiffness setting, and then when you're driving around normally, just loaf along so you don't feel them expansion joints on the bridges. Because some of us are in our 30s. Our backs don't like that very much.
True, and I mean, I guess in a money no object scenario, you'd have a
Yeah.
pretty decent driveway, but up by where you live, um, suspension is key.
No, no. If I'm having to deal with the fact of commute out of my farm, and we're talking like dream build, I'm getting one of the homologation Group E cars. Probably a Lancia 037 Stradale, or one of the recent resto mods of the Lancia Delta Integrale.
Okay. I mean, I remember, I remember seeing those deltas early on in life and thinking that, because like my car phase that I had, that I'm in my pony car phase. I had a hot hatch phase. Weirdly enough, before I got the C30, back when I had my Focuses. So like anything with a hot hatch, I was like, "What is that? That's cool." And the Delta's 100%, man. Um,
But I still, when it comes to the Lancia rally cars, even though it wasn't as successful as the Delta, I keep coming back to the 037, the Lancia Scorpion. I just that car just looks sick.
oh, the
Even though like, the
yeah,
mid-engine one that was rear-wheel drive only.
yeah,
Um,
the
I
twin
mean, I like
charged.
the Ford RS. Yeah, the Ford RS 200 Evolution is pretty sick too, but I don't know. Uh,
So what you're saying is
I just
if we happen to walk over and hand you a Group B or early or the subsequent Group A rally car, you wouldn't mind it.
Oh, absolutely not. It'd be perfect. It'd be perfect for the commute from my farm to anywhere else I need to go around town. Because I mean, I've got 5 or 6 miles of gravel and dirt road that only gets like regraded twice a year. So I got potholes to jump over and dodge.
Well, I mean, in a rally car, you go right over them.
Exactly. So don't have to worry about it.
Cool, man. Last but not least, let's same thing as we have received. Anything else you'd like to say? What's your best piece of dad advice? Whatever. What do you?
Well, I can't give dad advice because I don't have any kids that I know
Fair enough.
of. But
No, anything. It could be anything you want, man. Like where questions, comments. Uh,
um, all I'd say is find that group of friends that just find that circle that works with you, and build that community.
awesome.
Quality or quantity.
There you go, man. Absolutely. As we all, I think we're all, well, maybe not. I have no idea. But as we get to a certain stage in life, it becomes less about how many friends and what have you that you have, and more important is the quality of those individuals. And I've said it once, I said it a million times. One of the things I will never forget, and I'll always take with me, and I'll always keep, is how different the Volvo community is to every other community I've ever been a part of.
100%.
And how supportive and how nice and how good most of the overwhelming vast majority of people are. Like the dickhead to good person ratio in Volvos is, I mean, there's so many more good people than there are jackhats than like, or as opposed to say the Lexus or the BMW groups that I've been a part of that were 50-50. You know, it's maybe 95-5 if that it with the Volvos. So absolutely could not agree more. Thanks again for popping on, taking some time, sharing the frankly kind of surprising, but in a good way, inner workings of your automotive mind. That wasn't too terrifying, so I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, until next
Take it
time.
easy, my man. Alrighty. Before we get to our next individual, Doug goes, we should do a co-rob with him. He's in PA. Y'all in New Jersey. The regular cars are shifting lanes. I have absolutely no idea what you are in reference to. Please elaborate, Douglas. Paul over on YouTube. Now that automakers realize we're not going to buy $100,000 trucks, time for some boardroom theater to create unhinged automotive build ideas. I mean, yes, but boardrooms are always going to come to the conclusion that I can build this for this, make it look like that, and sell it for this. But I think those who are creative in their thought process, creative in their marketing ideas, and I don't want to say, so enthusiasts sadly do not drive the market. Drive a little bit of the market, portions of the market. Companies like Ford seem to understand that. But even Ford, you know, you have the Mustang and you have Raptor. And that's kind of it for the enthusiast. But look at GM and Mopar. I mean, Mopar, is there anything for enthusiasts? I mean, I guess if you're a fan of straight sixes, Challenger Charger gets your motor running, but as we touched on last week, those engines seem to have some issues that personally I would like to see sorted before anything else. You know, I think the pickup truck boom and the pickup truck, I don't know what you want to call it, mining of people who want them, or the ideal of what made pickup trucks so popular was that normal people wanted them. When I say normal, I mean people didn't have a need for a truck. Weren't towing stuff, weren't hauling stuff, weren't, you know, a contractor of some assortment or a painter or something, right? They didn't need a truck. They liked the truck and they liked the idea of once a month being able to grab stuff from Home Depot and bring it, but they liked the idea of being up high, something that you can't help but feel safe in and everything. And that led to the boom in pickup truck sales. And so manufacturers saw that. They started putting a little more luxury into it with like stuff like the Limiteds, the King Ranches, etc. And people were like, yeah, this is great. This is great. Yep, we'll do this. We'll keep doing this. And then it came to a point where they pushed too far. Or, yeah, I guess pushing too far is the best way to kind of describe that. Because the market, in addition to like inflation and stuff, started pushing pickup trucks again beyond that $100,000 price tag, which I think is a ridiculous price tag for 99% of pickup trucks. The general design of them hasn't changed in decades. So there's that perceived value, regardless of how nice the interior is. Especially when in 2019 you could get a Dodge Ram Limited 1500, which to this day, for my money, has the nicest interior of any pickup truck I've ever been in. And it was like $80,000 if you got like every bell and whistle, like the air suspension, the mild hybridization, all that sort of stuff, or what have you. Sean goes, like and subscribe. I appreciate you, my brother. Doug goes, your Centurion picture was from regular car reviews. Oh, okay. He's a YouTuber. Yeah, I've heard the name. He's a YouTuber from Pennsylvania. My buddy's car was on his channel way back in the day, 89 Buick. Just trying to get all our cars on his channel and get your channel a boost. Oh, I appreciate that, man. Not just no backwoods. No one wanted that. No Blackwoods. No one wanted that. At any rate, moving on to our next contestant on the I may have done. Oh, what's going on, computer? What the hell? All right, there we go. Oop. All right, there we go. So our, I think in Blackwood. Come on. Sorry to disappoint you, Douglas. All right. At any rate, our next guest coming to us from the Shadow Realm. You know him, you love him. He's been active today in chat, as always. We have Anthony, also from Appalachia. Anthony, my friend, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. It's been a good night so far. And minor correction, I'm about an hour and a half out from Appalachia. I'm more in central Virginia.
Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification. Doing this on the fly. I'm let's see it. There we go. But at any rate, how are you doing, my friend?
Dude, honestly, I'm doing great. I've got no complaints right now. How about yourself?
It's another Wednesday, I think. Fun fact, I thought yesterday. Fun fact, I thought yesterday was Wednesday. Or no, Monday.
When did you realize that at like 11:30?
No, I think it was Monday. I think all of Monday I thought it was Tuesday. So I was running around preparing. Like I was texting Greg, like, "You gonna be good for tomorrow?" And he's like giving me the side eye, like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" But yeah, it's been, I don't want to say a week, but like, like all the other stuff, like all the stuff we've kind of touched on over the past few weeks. But like, short version of the story is like my sleep patterns got hopelessly fucked, and so like. One day I'll go to bed early. Next day I'll go to bed late. Like, and just messes with your brain. Sleep is important, and to do so on a consistent basis, it's the key when you hit your 40s. But, Anthony, you have quite an interesting assortment of cars. I don't know if you're on Doug's level. You might be. I have no idea. But,
I don't see any reason to be in competition with Doug. He's pretty cool.
I didn't mean it on a competitive basis. I just meant it on a volume basis. Number of vehicles.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I know. It's let's see some of the highlights. I mean, obviously I've got a spread of all those. So moving on down the list, 96 A55R wagon, red, love that thing. We've got a 2008 Volvo C30 with the M66. Again, love it. Well, you have one. We got a 2015 Volvo V60 T6. That one is the lady's preferred ride. She loves that one. And there's also a 96 Dodge Ram 2500 sitting in the driveway with the 12 valve in it. I mean, it's cool old Dodge, you know, it just makes angry turbo and growly diesel noises. You know, who doesn't love that? There's also, since we're on the subject of swaps this evening, there's also a '01 Lincoln Town Car, silver with gray leather interior, total grandma spec, and big surprise, it's my grandmother's car. She was talking about selling it. And it there's this thought in my head that you currently have a most of a Coyote and most of the things to feed it boost. And I have this granny spec car that's in fantastic shape with super low miles. And I ain't gonna lie, man, the gears are turning, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, you've heard. I know there's been people who have Coyote swapped that Panther platform. Cletus being the most famous of them. But no, like.
Yeah, it looks like it's probably pretty good.
I don't know if there's kits and stuff out there for it. I'm sure. It's got those came. I think I know those came with a mod motor. So and the Coyotes are they're an evolution of the mod. So theoretically speaking, it's possible because I mean, again, I know people have done the Coyote swap on it, but I mean, not for nothing. That's a two birds with one stone thing. It gets you a pretty insane Lincoln town car.
Yeah. Comfortable. Super comfortable car.
Yeah. You with 705 horsepower, you might want like a little less wheel hop. But
well, yeah. I don't know if the air suspension is going to appreciate that too much. And quite honestly, I think the engine part won't be the most difficult part. I think what would be more involved was adding a third pedal to it.
Yes, but this day and age, you can almost manual swap. I mean, let's face it, you're probably looking at the tunnel, like trans tunnel, obviously, or what have you, and then adding a third pedal to it. But they make clutch kit. I've seen the biggest thing with engine swaps and all that stuff is like doing it in such a way to where, you know, where manual swap isn't overly complicated because you could get a pedal box, right? In theory, you could get a pedal box from pick a generation Mustang, you know, and then the master cylinder and all that, right?
Yeah, it'd probably work with enough fabric hobbling, but that's the thing. All the fabric hobbling. Because I don't think the Panther platform ever came with a manual from the factory. If it has, I would love to hear about that. But I think that's where it gets tricky. Is that fabric hobbling.
Right, and that's where, like, if you're doing something in your garage or at home or on your back in a driveway, it's a little tricky. I mean, that being said, excuse me. I mean, 6R80s are pretty responsive too. I mean, I understand, and as someone who has quite literally never owned an automatic, something I'm more as you think.
Are you kidding? You're always on here talking up how great the automatic is and how Greg's V60 shifts so great.
You're confusing me with calling that a cheater car, and with my love and affirmation for that platform. Yes, his all-wheel drive with the automatic makes. You could quite literally take a 12-year-old who has good common sense, and they could run within a tenth of a second of Greg, putting him in that car. That's that. But that being said,
yeah, I mean, I have more or less the same vehicle. I know, it gets out of the way nicely.
It's just all-wheel drive. I mean, all-wheel drive. It doesn't make an ass so much torque down low that it's looking to roast tires / other wearable items. But I don't even remember where I was going.
No, you really can't make that car break traction even trying. Like, it just
Which is
bites.
even
That's
all
what
the
it
more
does.
impressive given the rubber bands Greg uses for tires on those things. Which is so un-Volvo in my mind that it's an OEM thing and how little sidewall that his car has. But I mean,
Oh, and they're going absolutely crazy with it now. Their entire lineup has giant wheels and no tire. You have to ask for the smaller wheel with a thicker tire now.
yeah, I mean that I mean, to be fair, that is a whatever you want to call it, a curse of the automotive industry at this point in time. Is big wheels. I mean, look at. I know it's not exactly cross shopped with any Volvo that has ever existed ever, but look at the new Lamborghini Revolto. It's designed to have 20-inch rims up front and 21-inch wheels in the back. That is absurd. I know Audi with their LMP1 cars used to run bigger wheels and tires, but that was for the mechanical advantage of effectively gearing up when they were running the diesels and stuff. But like, it's ridiculous. I have 19s on my car. You know,
And it almost feels like
and
much.
I have. I mean, granted, if you look at the ratio, when if people were to ask, it's like, what your rear tires? What's the ratio on the sidewall? It's the 35. Oh, you must have no sidewall. You can have a ton of sidewall because they're 325s. But like, I would the only reason I would ever go 20-inch wheels on my Mustang is if I got to the point where I went with the GT350 brake conversion, because even though the rotors are only like, I forget, they're only like a couple millimeters larger in diameter than the rotors up front for my car, 19-inch wheels don't fit. So that'd be the only reason. But back to, I mean, let me put it to you this way, right? I think that would be such an ultimate sleeper. I mean, if you really wanted to kind of lean into the vibe of a Coyote swapped Lincoln Town Car with a manual box, there's got to be kits out there for that. I got to imagine people have like T56 swapped them, which is probably the transmission you'd want to go with. Simply because if you use because I also have a boost-proof built transmission that would go perfectly with the Coyote. But those MT82s where the remote shifter is, you'd basically have to like reach back here to shift in most cars that aren't Mustangs. That's why it's not a big swap option. But that is such a vibe. And then you could just sit here and go, all right, Lund, give me a ghost cam. I know it's tuning trickery, sort of. It basically goes variable cam timing. It just locks it in the high output cam setting. So that's where the lope comes in and everything like that. But it is interesting. It is interesting though that that's a route you are seriously considering, given that one of the cars that are in your possession.
Well, before you do that, I did forget one, and I think this one's really cool. I do have my 1996 Suzuki Trooper.
I forgot about
that.
that.
It's
Yeah.
got the 3 inches. It's on 30. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We kind of got sideswiped right into the.
I mean, yeah, you said Coyote, and as everybody in chat will tell you, like, that's a rabbit hole that like just triggers.
I'm surprised we. I'm surprised we didn't go that direction for the rest of the night.
I mean, it is definitely at this moment in time my automotive tism is that motor and what's possible with it. And remember, guys, he brought this up, so now they just Brett LaSalla and Snot Rocket 3.0, which is a S190 second gen S197 bodied Mustang. Now it is technically a pro mod because it's a tube frame car, but it's a stock wheelbase. Again, details. It just set the drag and drive radial record with a Coyote 6.0 something, 601 or something like that with a 6, I think. which in the quarter mile on a factory cast block and heads is absurd. Nobody else is doing that. Not even the 3,000 horsepower Audi guys, or Lamborghini guys are doing that. But at any rate,
Yeah, that's
again,
hell
it's
of
a
an
drag and
achievement.
drive car, so we're talking water jackets, cooling, and stuff. It's insane. That car, they are eventually going to get it into the fives, but the car has only been finished for like a few, like 6-ish months. So they have all the time in the world. But I can ramble on about that. Yeah.
Oh, we know.
That's
Oh, we
not
know.
why I invited you on, or invited everyone on the show tonight. It's to talk about you guys and your ideas. So, does anything else you'd like to get off your chest before there's something you're forgetting gets revealed to the world? Please, now would be the time, because there is one car in your collection that you're leaving out, and I want to get to it, but I want you know.
Yeah, I got two more T6 cars. I got a 2013 XC70 T6 and an S80 T6, but
I have
those
a
aren't
question
sticking
though.
around.
Before we get into anything else, how the crap do you decide what to drive in the morning?
Whatever key I
Okay.
find first.
Um, Fair enough. And how? And I have to ask, because we're finally going to get to it before I continue teasing the ever living shit out of it. How often is it this? Oh,
Oh, not
wrong,
yet.
wrong. There we go.
Not yet.
That.
That would be cool. Oh yeah, that. I mean, depending on the errand, it's almost daily at this point. That is my 2023 XC40 Recharge Twin, and it's an awesome car to kick around town, or even go and run 7 or 8 different errands throughout the day.
So it's finally happened, chat. We have finally allowed, and when I say we, I mean me, an EV owner to appear on the show. So, any questions, comments, concerns, blink twice if you're being forced to drive this car against your will type of stuff. For Anthony, now would be the time. But I got to ask, of all those, let me ask you this. What was the impetus or the inspiration to buy this vehicle? And was it more, it's a small, affordable EV? Or was it's a small, affordable Volvo?
No, I mean, there's plenty of small, affordable Volvos out there. I mean, I have one. I've got the C30. If I'm going for small, I mean, that's about the smallest thing they've got. I think I could get a 480 somehow, somewhere, if one's running and driving. But no, there's a combination of things behind that. But one of them is at the time the market was really favorable on the vehicle, and for buying something almost new these days, when you see a deal and you just think, yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes you just do it. Part of it was because ever since the XC40 came out, I mean, they kind of caught my eye. I like the youthful styling and everything. I mean, and for Volvo to do some of these designs that they did on that car, it was kind of bold. They were shaking things up a little bit, and anytime I do that, I really appreciate it. So yeah, the XC40 as a car caught my attention, and I decided, let's sit back and see how these things turn out. And then they started launching the electric ones, and at the same time, somebody like me who is kind of a tech enthusiast among other things was like, all right, this electric thing is getting kind of interesting, and it's actually taking some growth. And it got to the point where I was like, let's keep an eye on the right deal for one. And of course, I had to go bonkers with the specs. That's an ultimate trim, so she's fully loaded. It's got the twin motor, so it's got the best as far as power goes. It puts down quite a good bit of power. And then the color, I mean, me and the ladies sat together and just looked at them. We were like, "Oh, these things look fantastic in this weird blue." Steve even said it. He's like, I like the color." Yeah, dude, they nailed that color. It's awesome. And if you open the doors, you'll see on the inside the carpet is also blue. So the
So the
interior
carpet
kind
is
of matches,
matching the
which
drapes.
um, yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I spent a couple months looking for one in that spec, and as you know, I ended up in your neck of the woods to
Literally
buy
like
it.
5 minutes from my house. So those of you who don't know the
Yeah.
story, uh, Anthony reached out to me and asked, "Hey, how far are you from here?" And I was like, "I probably hit a golf ball and hit that town." Um, and he's like, "Oh, I found this car," and I was thinking, "Oh, I guess I'll go take a look at it, send some pictures," because during the new Mustang search, Anthony had actually helped me out and looked at a couple cars for me. Uh, Unfortunately, none of them ended up being the car I ended up buying, but he did help me on a car that I was pretty interested in. Uh, but some of the stuff was concerning, and between him and talking to some other people,
Yeah, that one right there in DC. I mean, on paper that car was sweet, but once you get real eyes on it, it's like there's that, and then there were some questions about its history that were just way too murky. And I know you have some shell shock from previous experiences, so you weren't about to even risk doing that
exactly.
again.
So no, so I thought, oh, this is my opportunity. You know, 'cause when he helped me out, I was like, if you ever need anything, let me know. And I thought that was the case. He's like, no, what are you doing? Like, what? So literally, Anthony's like, I'm gonna fly up with the missus, and we're gonna take a look at it and possibly buy it. All right. So I literally pick you up from Newark, drive you back, and they ended up getting the car. And I will say this: one of the things that surprised me the most about this car is the way the TC engages. It engages very much in a similar way, or a similar feel, or a similar audio experience to a gas TC. Whereas with an electric car, you figure the TC would be more of like a dimmer switch, right? Than like an on off on off on off experience. But like, I mean, let's face it.
In certain situations, I mean, at this point, I've been, driving the car a bunch. We got that car with under 8,000 miles on it. Now it's over 20,000. We've been running around quite a bit in it, and what I've discovered that in certain scenarios, yeah, it gets a little jittery with the traction control, but in other scenarios, it does a really good job of like making it seem like it's not even doing anything.
Sorry, my phone and stuff. But yeah,
But
I mean, look, as much as I want to give you crap or about it, and as much as like we joke around about EV stuff here, I think we, from an enthusiast standpoint, we have some of the more sensible takes on the whole EV thing, right? Like, there's a place for them. You know, you're a perfect example, right? Like, it's not like you live in a spot where, you know, everything is at your fingertips. I mean, you don't live in the middle of nowhere where you can't, like, it takes a day and a half to get to anything.
no, I mean, I'm about a 15-minute drive away from quite a few level 3 chargers. That being said, I do have a level 2 that I installed at home. And I mean, I just park it in front of the charger, plug it in, come back in the morning, and she's
Yeah,
ready
like
to go again.
the point I was making though is that, like, is there like, you're a perfect example of what most people would do, if not the overwhelming majority of people would do with a car, let alone an electric car. And would you say you've ever encountered anything remotely resembling range anxiety in your day to day?
No, because no, because here's the thing. Remember, I drove that thing straight home from New Jersey. I was a trial by fire as far as ownership goes, and that was part of the reason I decided to do it. Was kind of, I don't want to say an experiment, but kind of a dive into saying, I don't have much of an opinion on this, and it's something I'm interested in, so maybe I should just do it the real way, form an opinion for myself, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I mean, I got the kind of deal on the car that if I decided I didn't like it, I could wait and probably sell it for more than I bought it. So no big deal there. But yeah, I mean, as far as range anxiety goes, I don't think that ever really set in with me. Even the night that I drove it home from New Jersey to Virginia, like Doug said, I stopped over there to show it off to him, say hello, and hang out for a little bit. And while we're hanging out, the car was charging. I could definitely use the break from the road. I think by the time we got home, it was 4:30 the next morning after waking up at 4:30 the previous morning to fly out. So, yeah.
I mean, sorry.
Now, on the day to day, to elaborate on that question, on the day to day, no, I mean, I've done runs all over town, man. I've lining up multiple errands back to back, go and do this thing, do that thing, run across the other side of town, come back home.
Now,
I'm
would you
still
say you
good.
plan that stuff out more or less or the same as opposed to, like, say you were taking any of the other vehicles that you own out? Like, would you say you plan a route with this, or you just, it's a car, it just goes about its propulsion different?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't make any particular plans. I mean, I know in my mind, how far I can go on a charge, right? And I know that, oh, if I'm going to this place, that place, and that place, it's, I might not even chew out half of it because the amount of travel that I'm doing isn't what's swallowing up a whole day here. It's what I'm doing in between those different jaunts that takes up the majority of the day. So it's not like I'm jumping in the car and driving for an entire day. Most people don't do that.
Right. No, I guess the point I was trying to make is, like, let's say you got to do 4 errands. Now, the way my, lizard brain works is, I don't know if anyone else has this, but if you go on like a drive and you're doing stuff and you have to go to multiple locations, I hate backtracking. So I have been known to go to a friend's house, go the slightly longer way to go to the store, go back somewhere so I can make a circle as opposed to a line, which is totally irrational. I totally understand that, and most people don't think that way. But, like, the question would be is, like, most people think of, like, okay, I got to go to Home Depot, I got to go to ShopRite, I got to go to this, I got to go to that. What should I go to first, right? Like, me, I like driving, so I just go. Is there any like I said, is there any difference in your day-to-day driving that than anything else you would drive?
As far as route planning goes, no, because it again, with the range that it has, which is over 200 miles, most things that me or most other people would just be doing on a day-to-day, running 4 or 5 different errands through the day, just doesn't touch that.
So, okay.
Now, if I were to say there have been a couple of times where I've just said, you know what, I'm going to take this just to see what it's like, and you plug an address into the GPS, and it's all built in to say, hey, you might need to make a stop for a charge along the way. You can pick your spot where you can charge, which now they've opened up Tesla superchargers to Volvos, so that's nice. Those are everywhere, or at least anywhere I've been anyway. So it'll actually tell you, 1, where you need to stop, 2, how long you need to spend there, and 3, what your percentage will be after that charge. Say you only want to spend 20 minutes there. You can set in the actual route what you want your percentage to be on the battery when you arrive at your destination. And it will give you an estimate of where to stop and how long to be there based on that.
I mean, the tech in this stuff.
So, yes, when you do need to route plan, I don't know how other EVs do it, but the way Volvo does it is
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
nice.
not for nothing. That's sort of a, not to use the cliche, but a sort of set it and forget it. It's like, all right, I need to go here. It's going to get me there, right? Like, it's not going to send me
Right.
the one route where I'm not going to be anywhere near a charging station and be shit out of luck. Steve kind of brought this up, and
Yeah, it's Google Maps
I
based.
mean, that's fantastic. Like,
Good.
we've talked about this so much on the show, how I understand why you have to have an infotainment system, like a base infotainment system, if you're a car manufacturer. But we've often sat here and said, like, why don't they just do
Yeah.
Apple or Android Auto, like, and like some third party like a third party, as opposed to wasting the time, energy, and money. But Steve was mentioning this in chat, and I wanted to kind of elaborate this
Yeah.
on it. How how is it in the cold? Have you noticed any sort of depreciable loss in range? And have you had a chance to get it in the snow?
Yes. So yes to both of those things. First and foremost, yes, they do suffer from a reduction in range in the cold. And if it gets cold enough, we're talking single digits here, um, it will actually reduce the performance long enough for the battery to warm up so the battery's not damaged when you stab it.
Interesting. That's
So you do see in more extreme cold temperatures, you see a bit of a reduction in the battery capacity, and then once you really start to get cold, the car will kind of dial back the power a little bit. Um, but as far as the actual snow goes, it does perfectly fine in it. I took it to a parking lot and I tried to get it to spin around, but it wouldn't let me do that.
return it,
In fact, one of the biggest things,
return it, send it back. Unacceptable.
yeah, yeah, I worked out how to do it. There's an off-road mode that kind of turns a lot of the nanny stuff off, and it let me play. But one of the big things that it does is if I'm moving at speed and I quickly swing the wheel one way, it just kind of plows the front end a little bit. So you don't really get the ass of the car to swing out like you would want to unless you go in and you change all that off-road stuff and everything like
True,
that.
but I mean, a
So,
lot of cars,
you know,
if
if
you
I
just
if I want to,
throw the wheel at a certain speed, will just understeer. All
yeah,
I can't think of any car from an OEM that's not understeer biased. Meaning, every car you buy will plow before it wants to release the ass end. With horsepower, yeah, you can sort of do that. Um, but here's the sort of, I guess, $1 million question.
what's that?
Sorry, I'm just sorry if I'm my phone is exploding, and I'm getting messages from every single friend of mine who is a baseball fan. Apparently, the Mets re-signed Pete Alonso, so and I'm just trying to like turn the alerts off so it's not just ding 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 in my ear. Um, anyway, totally car related. Totally get it. And knowing what you know now about that car and everything that you've done with it and all like sort of the okay, I can just sort of treat it like an car, and just the fact I get fuel in a different way. Before Steve has an
Yeah,
aneurysm, what color is that? Is your Volvo?
which
The
one?
the EV.
Okay. Oh, the XC40. It's called Fjord Blue.
Fjord blue or fjord blue?
Yeah, Fjord, like F
Okay,
J
something
O
Nordic.
R
Got
D.
it. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure for those listening or what have you. So, again, everything that you've learned, all of your experiences with that car, and you've put more than a decent amount of mileage on it. Number one, have you had to take it in to do any sort of maintenance?
No, no, that's we're talking somewhere to the tune of 14,000 miles with just plugging it in when needed.
Fantastic. Then when would your first service be? And what would it be, actually? Is an interesting question.
Um, I think when it hit 20,000 miles, it's due for scheduled maintenance. I, as far as I know, they're gonna go over it, top off the washer fluid, and I'm entitled to free wiper blades while it's under warranty once a year, I think.
I mean, that is another benefit of an electric car. They are simple. Um,
Yeah, and I think Doug could probably chime in on what entails a full service on the Volvo EVs. He probably just knows that in running ready knowledge.
he kind of has to, if I'm not wrong. Here he goes. 20K is cabin filter, 40K is cabin filter, and brake fluid flush. Interesting. So what if any
Oh
maintenance to
well.
the electric motors is done? I mean, they can't have a forever lubricant or anything in any of that sort of stuff. Um, mm.
On paper, it's I think it's much like the lifetime fluid thing that you see on transmissions and other components of modern cars. Then that there's probably a few reasons behind that. One of them is keeping the projected cost of ownership down, which is a huge metric in auto
Right.
sales now. Now, in my eyes, I would say, yeah, there's a coolant system for the battery and the running gear that I would want to flush after. So, if it uses the same coolant that most engines are using, that's like a 10-year thing. And then whatever lubricant lives inside of the differentials, I would most certainly want to replace that.
Right. So, with all of that being said, um, and just from previous conversations we've had, some of the stuff we've seen you all kind of post in chat or what have you, I think you're quite pleased with your
Yeah,
purchase. If I'm wrong, please elaborate.
I'm happy with it. I don't have any real complaints, none at all. I mean, the tiny little gripes that I have, I'd much rather have these tiny little gripes than some of the more serious problems that other vehicles are facing right now. That's for sure.
Right. Well, what
Um,
are those?
I mean, the rear camera, nothing to write home about, and I think its placement is a little weird considering it's right between the license plate illumination. So at night when you turn on the rear camera, you get a little bit of it washed out because that light reflects off of the
Oh,
license plate. If I had a way to cut down the amount of light that those license plates, that the illumination, if I had a way to cut that back some, I think it'd be all right. Um, the center console is a big fat piece of black gloss plastic, and being less than a year old, it's already showing scratches. So that's not going to get any
yeah,
prettier over
gloss on the
time.
center console is I never quite understood because especially plastic, it's gonna scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, the one or two audio related issues that I've had are very common on those. Basically, it's like it loses its bass and treble settings sometimes. So you have, say, your bass, your treble, and your subwoofer set to a certain point, and then just out of nowhere you get in the car and everything sounds flat, like it's all down at the bottom. So I figured out all I got to do is go back to the settings and swipe it back and forth to where I
That
want
is
it, and it
interesting.
comes back.
Like that.
Yeah. Other people have more, like, I guess you could say, serious issues with their audio system, but I think that is part of the glitches that live within the current version of the software on the infotainment system. But we've got major updates coming along, and it's probably to be expected. A lot of that is going to be
That's
addressed.
good, and that's one of the cool things about electric cars is that like you could almost have a what's the best way to describe it? You have a Wi-Fi mechanic, right? Like stuff's going weird. Okay, software update. you know.
Yeah.
And then lastly, and then we'll kind of call it for the evening. I feel like it's going to be a two-parter. I feel like if you could go back and do it again, you would with this car, number one. And number two,
Yes.
does this make you more or less likely to seek out a EV in the future?
I would say it makes me more likely to do so, especially I had the opportunity to take a Rivian to a test drive. And if Rivian manages to put out a truck that could tow 10,000 pounds plus for a few hundred miles, we're talking, its full towing capacity. If it can manage to move that a few hundred miles at a time between charges, they would most certainly have my attention. I think that as a kind of a much smaller company, they're really hitting it out of the park, especially in the interior comfort and design department inside. I mean, it's nice. Have you ever
Yeah,
been in one?
from a design and execution well, actually, I might rephrase that. Rivian, apart from the headlights, didn't fall into the EV trap of make it different, make it look futuristic, make it look like a flying egg, or any of that stuff. They have,
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, very Volvo-ish proportions.
Tesla with their sharks.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla's a totally different animal, and I think everyone tried to be like, oh, they're successful. Let's do what Tesla's doing.
Do exactly what they're
which
doing.
defeats the purpose because Tesla is successful because they're different. If you try to not be different by copying them, it defeats. They're going to go to the original, right? Like, why get Ford trying to be Tesla when I can just get a Tesla, right? Like when EVs start just looking like cars, I think more and more people kind of want them. But anyway,
And that, I think, is part of the allure of the XC40 Recharge. I think that's part of why I was okay with it, is because it doesn't stand out amongst its brethren, so to speak. Unless you actually know, honestly, if you know Volvos, you could probably look at it and tell. But just as a casual person, just going down the road, or even a lot of people who know a decent amount about cars, there's only a couple of things on that car that would even clue you in that it's electric.
right, and I mean, you do see some of it with some of the other manufacturers. Basically, apart from badging wheels, the only way to differentiate these cars from a quick glance is the grille, or lack thereof, or how they fill it in.
Right. I mean, if you look under it and you don't see the tailpipe, there's another indicator. But I mean, I've seen a couple of gas cars on the road that they're doing a pretty wild job of hiding the.
I mean, I know it's on the amazingly opposite side of the spectrum, but the Bugatti Veyron has hidden exhausts. Right. You don't see all of the exhausts on a Veyron, and EVs are kind of, well, not EVs because there is no exhaust. But, I mean, it's pretty interesting that you say that, because I think once somebody figures out how to tow that amount of weight for that amount of distance, I think we're entering a phase where, what's your complaint with EVs? Because if you can tow 10,000 pounds, 200 miles, that means unladen, you're in the 600-700 miles of range territory.
I do believe my earbud just died.
What's that?
I do believe my earbud just died. The mild malfunction. I've got it straightened out. Sorry.
I don't even remember what I said. Oh, I feel once you're, so if you can make a vehicle, right, an EV specifically, that is capable of towing 10,000 pounds for 200 miles, we're looking at 500-600 miles at least unburdened. You know,
Unladen, yeah.
we're looking at a range that the fleshy bit behind the wheel will run out of juice before the car does. And that's
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately the goal of the industry. I mean, they're already doing a lot with, improving battery technology, and I think in time we could
I
see
don't
that
think it's a
happen.
matter of if, I think it's a matter of when, and I think it's a matter of okay, we're doing with the I personally I've started and it's not something we've ever really talked about on the show. Well, we may have. But anyway, not in any sort of detail. Nor do I really want to get too down that rabbit hole, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I feel with electric cars and lithium and cobalt and that sort of stuff, we've kind of fallen into the same trap of, all right, we're running out of this resource, and getting it is getting more and more detrimental, whatever, right? Like,
Right.
to, ooh, look at this other resource. Let's dig that out of the ground. And it's detrimental to the environment and like all this other sort of stuff, right? Like, I think for EVs to really have their foothold, have them become the mainstream, which I don't know if we'll see in our lifetime, but that's again a topic for another day. Is who can figure out a way to make a battery out of, and I know there's companies work. We've talked about sodium ion before here, and unfortunately, sodium ion isn't as energy dense as lithium.
Right. So an equivalent battery would have to be just
I think
gigantic.
I think at this point, if we're talking about the same exact cubic volume, same exact volume, cubic volume is a bit redundant. Uh, Sodium ion's like 60%. Now, can sodium be? Obviously, it's a new day, so they might be able to get that efficiency to 70. I don't know what the limits of the material are. I'm not a chemist. I'm not an engineer. But if there's a way to do that, say, solid state, and solid state theoretically doubles, I don't know who came up with it, but right? But you could get to a similar range as lithium with a product that to harvest, you take some seawater and throw it on a dry surface and let the sun do the work for you. You know,
Right.
and who knows? There might be an element out there where it's like there might be someone who sit here and goes, introducing the brand new dirt ion battery, where literally we just get dirt or silica or what have you from here, and we can turn it into a battery, right? Like there's a tech we're not even thinking of that's going to completely change the game. Um,
Yeah, and whatever company is the first to roll that out and be able to mass scale it and everything. I mean that's an industry
right, and I
changing
mean,
thing.
look, I think this is a good place to kind of wrap. Uh, and we've said it before, and I'm going to continue to say it. It is pretty interesting for someone like yourself who has all of these cars in various states of tune, trim, stockness, as it were. I mean, I'd love to know the percentage of individuals who have a 12 valve and an EV. Like, I mean, it's probably like
obviously going
it's
to be on the
probably
low
you and
side.
like five other dudes. Um,
Right.
so it's an interesting when you first reached out to me and said you were looking at an all electric car. I was like,
Oh, I knew it threw you for a loop. That was part
I
of the
was
fun
like,
of it.
crap. Mark's one of the.
I think I leaned over to my woman and I said, "Hey, watch, I'm about to mess him
Well, my
up
first thought
right
was,
now."
shoot, Anthony's one of the few friends I don't have a, you know, I've been taking captive catchphrase to like alert me to danger. It's like, I think my first reaction when I first saw it was, I wonder if his Facebook account got hacked. Um, but no, it's
I'm just that
look, and that's
unpredictable.
like part. Actually, I'll get to this in a minute, but like, it's what makes car enthusiasm um such an interesting, broad, diverse, never boring uh hobby or whatever you want to call it, because
Hobby, a community, I mean, a brotherhood at
whatever
the
you
end
want
of
to
the
call
day. I
whatever
mean,
you want to call it, it's like one of those things where like we can
you're right.
have, you know, I mean, there's look at the difference between me and Greg and what we like. I mean, granted, if he gets his wish, that gap is going to be shrunken because he will be in the V8 club and uh, possibly American and two doors. But at any rate, um, but then like
Yeah, but his V60 needs a bigger turbo. I mean, I'm probably going to beat him to that punch. I've got Nick Knight
you
building me
know,
a turbo now.
all right, here's where we'll actually close. I personally believe, and again, I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone to buy or not buy. Like when you said you were looking at that car, the general consensus, or people who don't know me or whatever, would have thought my first reaction would be, "What's wrong with you? You're crazy. Don't do it. EVs are the devil." I was like, "No, sure, I'll help you out. It's fine. It's a car. It's a car." You know, um, and but like when it comes to Greg and stuff, I think there's more value in a what really drives him, so to speak. Like he likes the weird, he likes the rare. You know, if he was to get a Challenger, he'd just be another guy with a Challenger, right? But he's got that V60 Polestar. It's rare. It's different. It's got a transverse straight six because Volvo. It's like a VR6 and where the placement of the accessories and stuff are. Like there's so many like interesting little things about it. We've already touched on how that thing gets up and goes out of the hole and everything. Um, I think there's more value to him and more enjoyment to be had, especially with his kids and how it's daddy's fast car, to making that thing a little bit faster. I understand Greg is not the modder that I am, or he doesn't look at cars like that like I do. He looks at cars and he'd be like, louder, wheels, wrap. Like look at the Aston, right? Like it got a wrap and wheels for Greg. Where if it were me, I'd horsepower, headers, whatever. So part of me understands why he doesn't really want to go down that route, and I also think, shoot, every car he's tried to modify, he's had some kind of issue with, not of his doing, right? Like there was the tuning issue with the E90 M3. There was the tuning issue with this that apparently he has sorted, and it does worry me that he thinks he. Look, I get it that boost is boost and positive manifold pressure is positive manifold pressure. Doesn't need to know what size your turbo is, just needs to know the air it's moving, right? But I still, like, if he were to get a bigger turbo, dude, tune the car. Just please, for me. Put it on a dyno, tune it. Like, but I don't think he's going to go that route. And I think he wants something different. I think he definitely wants a V8. To which I think he should just get a V6, a V70, put an R body kit on it, and then put the Yamaha V8 in it. But, you know, again, that's my brain, not his.
That would be sick.
To me, again, that would be one of the things I would do. Yeah, Doug, you make a good point. Greg lost his steam with the Polestar when there weren't big gains with the tune. He did, in my opinion. I think there's something to that. And again, I don't necessarily... The tuning scene in Volvo right now concerns me, and it concerns everyone, really, who's got Volvos and stuff, in that all the names that you knew and trusted aren't really around anymore. So there's no one really to fact check or call out or sit here and say, dude, that mod, that downpipe, and that tune shouldn't have netted you 50 wheel horsepower. The fact that it didn't, like, what's going on? You know, but again, like I said, Greg has never been a big modder. I think his appetite for big mods kind of ended when he built his V70R, and just how many and that. But no, I'm with you.
I don't know. I would almost say that I bet Greg will at least ask me when our V60 is all said and done. At least ask me
I'm
some
sure he
questions.
will. I mean, let me put it this way: I've known him long enough to know that his curiosity is going to get the better of him. Um, and not for nothing, it's such an inexpensive mod. All things considered. I mean, granted, I am coming from planning out the build for the new Mustang and coming off of the price tag of building the silver Mustang, which was a lot. We've touched on that.
Yeah,
So when he sits here and tells me for 4,000 to 5,000,
yeah, you're talking a
no,
quarter of
less.
that.
Like, I mean, I guess in labor and stuff, but like just in parts, you know, what the turbo, the intercooler, and all the stuff, like the ancillaries to make it work and work right, is what, like $5,000, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
$5,000 didn't buy any of my power headers. Like, it's just, I guess maybe the headers, but and I guess the intake manifold, but I bought those as a package deal. But
It counts.
like my supercharger that I bought on heavy discount, which they then discounted themselves a year later, which was annoying. But was that kit was $6,500, and then I had to spend another $2,000 for the fuel system. So I'm 82 in the hole, or well, 85 in the hole just for the supercharger kit. And then my transmission was $4,500. Like, it's just, again,
See, now you're scaring me away from the Coyote.
well, here's the
Lincoln
bottom
thing.
line. You don't have to spend that because you have someone who has parts. Like, for example, the long block that I have, 3,500. You wait. Let me put it this way. Not necessarily saying you have to buy it. I'm saying if someone were to buy it. When someone buys the engine, trans, and supercharger kit, I'm going to get a new intake manifold. So, Anthony bought my long block. Would you like a 2018 intake manifold, which is better than the 2015? Dyno proven, by the way, which the Silver Mustang had on it when it made 705. So I had a ported 2018, but if you're running boost, you don't really need to port the intake manifolds because you're just shoving the air through it. Again, there is some benefit, but whatever. But like what I'm saying is that you can find, I mean, hell, you could find a 2015 manifold for $350. You could find a throttle body, which again I will have, for not that much money. The only thing that you would have to find is you'd probably have to go to. I could get you the information if it ends up being you, because friend, not random internet buyer. But Jeff, for all the Coyote swaps that they do over at Blue Sky, they get a module, an unmarried module that is a 40 CU for all their swaps. So you would get that. You'd contact somebody like Lund Racing, and they'd do the tune. They'd flash the tune. My point is if you were to do the Boosted Coyote with used parts, you'd probably spend a third of what I did. And the only thing you would have to figure out, especially if you go the manual transmission route, is
Adding that third pedal.
well, again, the doing is different from the sourcing, right? Like adding the third pedal, you're going to have to figure out
Right.
some fabrication. Although you have to figure out some fabrication, figure out running lines. You know, I'm sure Sean could help you with that because he's quite an expert at running clutch lines, I hear.
Yeah. We had quite an adventure with his clutch lines. Hey, Sean, how many did we make before it
I think
worked
you just
out?
ended up hard, or you ended up going with the flexi line too. But I tell people this, right? There's a reason why when I ask Blue Sky how much they how much to swap X into Y, their answer is always $25,000. They go, that's the starting price. Doesn't matter the engine, doesn't matter the car that it's going into. That's where it starts. And there's a reason, because swaps aren't inherently easy. Unless you're using something from, like, for example, if I was to take a Predator out of a GT500 and put it into my car, that would make more, that would be relatively easy because you don't need to worry about mounting and all of that sort of stuff. But I also think don't sleep on the 6R80s either. Like, as much as I'm a manual guy and always get 3 pedals, the 6R80s for the Mustangs and the Coyotes are strong, they shift quick, and they can be fun if you do it the right way. And don't let Sean talk you into getting some dual clutch BMW nonsense. I'm just messing. But on that note, Steve, Sean, and of course Anthony, thank you guys so much for giving us some of your time. Who knows if Greg's job takes us a minute to figure this out. We can figure out a way to do kind of more of these. It would be kind of cool to do in a call-in radio style or what have you. But again, the way my brain works. But thanks to those guys for popping on. Again, this is stuff we do with our supporters. There's only 4 people watching at the moment, so one of which is me. But again, this is stuff we do with our supporters. So thank you to each and every one of them. Even if you didn't get to come on today, there will be other times. So, but thank you, Anthony. Thank you to the boys.
You're welcome. And shout out to Steve and Sean for getting up here for their first time and having a conversation with us. That was pretty cool.
I mean, this isn't as much as it is just kind of having a phone call conversation. The element of the fact that it is out there can be nerve-wracking for some. So,
yep.
Steve goes, you might as well have Elliot a full-time member for here. That's a conversation for another day.
He has a point.
Who, Steve?
He has a point.
Yes. I love having Elliot on. Conversation's always pretty good. Everyone is, Steve, if you don't do this on a regular, you're going to be shy. You're going to be thinking about what you're saying. You're going to be, I shouldn't. You're not going to react. You don't have the practice. It's muscle memory. So, like, there was a time, if I did this 10 years ago, where it wouldn't be what it is. And I'm not saying it's great. I'm not. I'm not saying I'm a pro. I'm not saying any of that. But, I mean, Sean, I think from now on, has to Gronk spike a beverage every time he's on. I think that is now tradition. But on that note, boys, Steve likes your beard, Anthony. I keep finding.
I like my beard too. Yeah, that isn't going anywhere.
Again, Anthony is not the face of what you would think an EV owner would look like. A Cummins owner, hell yeah, but not EV. So that's for it. But on that, that's it for the night, boys. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, liked, shared, donated, all that sort of fun stuff. But we will catch you